Doom Eternal: The Ancient Gods Part 2 was released on March 18th of 2021, mere weeks ago as of this recording, and has already had, in such a short time, an incredibly divisive history. It seemed that the majority of the criticisms came from the outcry of fans who didn't enjoy The Ancient Gods Part 2, and not so much of those who did enjoy it initially, and I think the loudest voices in the industry are those who are the most critical of Doom Eternal, but those are also the most passionate people. I've decided to record this video just to show that, I am one of those people. I am passionate about this franchise. I've been a fan of Doom for a very long time. Those who know me personally, who follow me on Twitch, know what I'm all about. If you want to find me on Twitch as well with these gameplays of Doom Eternal and other rage-inducing FPS, you can find me at the links down below, twitch.tv/dilbo__, hit me up. Before we go any further, I will say, spoiler warning. You have been warned, so click away now if you don't want to know anything about The Ancient Gods Part 2, but it's been out long enough where I don't think there's any restrictions on anybody having spoilers in their videos now, so if you get upset, it's your own fault, so let's move on. Video games are art, and art is subjective, so here's my take on Doom Eternal: The Ancient Gods Part 2. Let's get into it. So where are we up to story-wise with Doom Eternal: The Ancient Gods Part 2? Well, let's read it from the game directly itself. The war against evil continued, as the Slayer resurrected the Dark Lord himself in an act of defiance against the Makers, leaving the heavens in ruins. The Slayer must now survive the treacherous journey to Immora, the capital city of Hell, to face the Dark Lord in ritual combat. If the Slayer is victorious, any demons outside of Hell would be destroyed and all connections to the Dark Realm would be severed. If he loses, the Dark Lord and his armies will rule all. And that's pretty much it. At the end of Tag 1, you obtain the Dark Lord's life sphere and you activate him and he shows himself, and now you're on the hunt to get the son of a bitch.
You son of a bitch.
Along with the Ancient Gods Part 2 release, there were many updates that were made to the base campaign, but most notably to the enemy types and to the Atlantica facility in the Ancient Gods Part 1. The changes were made to the Marauder, the Arachnotron and the Bloodmakers, and probably others, but I won't get into too much detail because I don't know too much about the changes apart from the Bloodmakers. The extensive changes to the Ancient Gods Part 1, however, was most notably recognized in the Atlantica facility with the changes to the difficulty spike, which I won't go into too much detail either, but that can be found on many other videos. But the fundamental change that I experienced with my recent playthrough of the Ancient Gods Part 1 is the change, or lack thereof, of enemy placements. To put my 2 cents in here, there's most notably the section where you enter the room in the Atlantica facility near the opening area, where you walk in and you're expecting a Dreadnought to pop up and 2 Cyber Mancubus to battle it out. But they're just not there, and it's kind of weird. Where's the... There's supposed to be a Dreadnought there. Alright. Why did they get rid of the Dreadnought? Am I playing this on Nightmare? Surely not. This is on Nightmare. Wow. There's supposed to be a Dreadnought that pops up here, and then once you beat that, there's Cyber Mancubuses that pop out. I know that Hugo Martin, the game director of Doom Eternal, has confirmed that they are reverting a few of the changes, but we're yet to see exactly what those changes are going to be like, so for now, I'm just going to give my perspective of the Ancient Gods Part 2 in the state that it's in as of this recording. Doom Eternal introduces us to 4 brand new levels. We have the World Spear, Reclaimed Earth, Immora, and the 4th level being the final boss as a standalone, being the Dark Lord himself. Each level tried to bring something new to the table, but strangely enough, doesn't carry across into the other levels. The meat hook platforming from the World Spear is only used a handful of times in Reclaimed Earth. Oh, get Ariel, get out, get up, get up, get up, get up! And only to reach other areas of the level, and not so much for the combat itself. And I can't think of a time where it's needed in Immora. And not even for the final boss himself. You would expect a game like Doom Eternal to introduce new mechanics so you can learn them with new enemy types, and especially to teach you how to master those new abilities, so that way when you reach the end, you get to utilize everything you've learned throughout the experience up until then, and go to town on whatever's waiting for you. The only real game changer is the new weapon known as the Sentinel Hammer, and oh boy, is this thing magnificent.
My son's curse has been lifted.
Let's see if I can get this bit without dying. I'm a fucking joker if I think I'm going to be able to do this without dying. At least once or twice. At least. Does that have a... Many people criticize the hammer due to how overpowered it can be sometimes, but you do have to admit, It is immensely fun to use, but I do think the criticisms are justified. The Sentinel Hammer serves as a replacement super weapon to the Crucible Blade that we left embedded in the skull of the Icon of Sin, John Romero, at the end of the base campaign. I personally wasn't a huge fan of the Crucible Blade, as it was more of a get-out-of-jail-free card against super heavy demons in crowded areas, and it didn't really have much skill to use, as it was an instant kill when it worked when you needed it to. The hammer, on the other hand, is a tool to be used to stun nearby enemies when you need to, rather than just one-shot killing them. Yes, it can deal damage to weaker enemies, but most importantly, it can kill tougher enemies once they've taken enough damage already and they're close enough to death. But mainly, it's a tool to be used when you're getting overrun, you need that quick solution to just pause everything in place for a second, regain some health, armor, and ammo, and deal enough damage whilst you're doing that with your own weapons.
Focus.
I'm trying! I made the mistake on my first playthrough, as I always tend to do, to save these super weapons until they are absolutely necessary, but in subsequent playthroughs I've learned the new levels are pretty generous with their BFG rounds, and instead of having charge pickups for the Sentinel Hammer, all it takes is 2 glory kills to charge, or the destruction of weak points. Because not all enemies have weak points, unlike the Arachnotron and the Mancubus, I found the best way to regain my hammer charges is just to use the plasma rifle to damage the weaker enemies just enough to get them into a glory kill state, and recharge the hammer that way. It really is overpowered, and it plays into the ultimate power fantasy that Doom in recent years has been going for, but for many Doom fans, they've complained that the hammer is essentially breaking the game, making the combat encounters too easy, because if you know how to manage your glory killing, you can pretty much spam the hammer in most encounters. But I say, so what? As long as you're having fun, the game is still challenging with or without the hammer, and I know that I have a great time using it. Doom Eternal is all about managing your resources and utilizing your arsenal to its full advantage. Learning how to use the hammer, though, is something that I didn't really pick up on how to use it correctly up until the final boss fight, which is weird because Doom Eternal is the kind of game that builds up your skill set. It teaches you how to use certain things, so that way when you're ready to take on the final challenge, you know how to utilize the tools that you have in your arsenal. But for me, I didn't learn anything until the Dark Lord fight, which after that moment made subsequent playthroughs much more bearable for me. But enough about the hammer, let's get onto the other levels and what they provide. I think the disappointment from fans really comes from the expectations that id Software had set before releasing the Ancient Gods Part 2, saying that they were going to double down on the demons and the difficulty and introduce many new and exciting new mechanics, the best stuff that they've ever put into a video game. And these kind of announcements got people, myself included, a little intimidated, so we mentally prepared ourselves for levels which were going to be much harder than the Ancient Gods Part 1 right out of the gate. But anybody who's played both Tag 1 and 2 now, Tag 2 does not push our abilities to the extreme. Yes, there are new things to experience here, but the difficulty doesn't come anywhere near close to what Tag 1 had initially before even it was toned down. Personally, I don't think this is a bad thing. Why? Because I like to enjoy myself. Tag 1 drove me absolutely crazy my first time playing through it, because there are sections I genuinely felt that were unfair, and just, they weren't fun. 100 tentacles in a foggy area with Spectre Pinkies and a possessed Arachnotron? Get that shit out of here. I feel like these new levels were designed with the wider player base in mind, allowing the wider player base of Doom fans to actually enjoy themselves, rather than catering to the elite Ultra Nightmare only players, and that's what Master levels are for, and we have more of those to look forward to in the future. First level up in the new DLC is the World's Spear. This is a strange yet beautiful looking level which gives us hints of what kind of civilizations live within the wider Doom universe. It's a very medieval feeling place with luscious greenery and wide open spaces to explore, and ancient architecture which I wouldn't say feels completely out of place for the current Doom universe. It is very much a departure from the dark and terrifying hallways of the Doom 3 or the Doom 2016 Mars facilities, or any Hell levels for that matter, but it is a unique place to expand the universe into, and I liked it. Certain environments within the World Spear definitely gave up a kind of Halo vibe, but that's okay, I've got no problems with that, and you know what? I'm not the only one who thinks that either. We're introduced to the new meat hooking platforming sections, which I absolutely love when they're available during combat. Most meat hook sections though throughout the DLC are used mainly to reach new areas of the level, but when they're placed for combat areas, such as this open area you're watching right now, it's incredibly fun to use. If there's anything the base campaign needs updates with, it's these meat hooking things, and I suppose a well-placed Cacodemon will also do just fine. We're introduced to a new enemy type known as the Screecher, which was speculated to be an entirely new enemy, which was incredibly dangerous to be around. You really had to pay attention to your surroundings with this, but once we've got the DLC, it's nothing more than just a hazard zombie. You do need to be careful though around these zombies, because once you kill them, they activate an ability which buffs all the surrounding demons, making everything much more challenging. I was really hoping though for a new enemy type which had similar movement to the Whiplash, which was begging to be killed, but they're just a zombie and which they barely move, so once you see it, all you need to do is not set off any explosives around them and you'll be fine. They really aren't a challenge in the slightest unless you land an unfortunate remote detonation or a grenade nearby, and all they do is make you more wary of your explosive ammunition. You'll find the Screecher zombies in tricky places, acting as more of a mobility and control challenge instead of in the tougher arenas. The next enemy on the roster is the Armored Baron, which is just a Baron of Hell with a shiny new metal jacket which can be overheated and damaged quickly by using the microwave beam most effectively, or his armor can be broken by shooting his weak point, which is a chain mace attack he shoots out of his arm. I found the best way to take him out is starting with the microwave beam or precision bolt to break the weak point and then hitting him with an ice bomb and then a shield chain gun. Realistically though, they're just a Baron of Hell with a few extra steps, and you know what? That's cool. The last new enemy type introduced in the World Spear is the Stone Imp, and the Stone Imp is just a reskinned regular imp, except now they're Sonic the Hedgehog.
I'm so fast, you couldn't even comprehend how fast I am.
God damn it!
They have a roly-poly attack and they're weak to the full auto shotgun, but I feel that's just id Software's way of making people use it, just like the microwave beam in the Spirits. The shotgun is not the only way to deal with them, but it is the most effective. Otherwise, the chainsaw or smack them with the sentinel hammer will do just fine. They can be challenging and overwhelming in numbers, but otherwise they're pretty easy to handle. Later on in the World Spear level, we are introduced to escalation encounters. Later in the World Spear, we are introduced to escalation encounters, which are definitely my personal favourites out of the entire new DLC. They act and look like gore nests from Doom 2016, except I wish they were more bloody and visceral. They kind of look a little out of place when you see them, but once you activate the encounter, it spawns in a challenging sequence of demons, just like a Slayer Gate would, and this is where I have the most fun. Once you defeat the encounter, you get the Sentinel Hammer upgrade, making it even more powerful than it was before, and if you're up to it, you can reactivate the encounter and take on even more challenging sequence of demons. I wish you could just reactivate it as many times as you want though, and it acts as an enemy randomizer of sort, but once you've beaten it a second time, you get a new skin and then it's gone, which is fair enough. I love these encounters, I just wish each of them offered that little bit more. And did I mention Doom Eternal now has dragons? Yeah, Doom Guy rides a fucking dragon. Next up, Reclaimed Earth. Reclaimed Earth is the next level obviously set on Earth, as the title suggests. It's a section of Earth where plant life has overgrown the buildings, and it's another bright and grassy level which puts more emphasis on box-style arena design, especially with this level's escalation encounter. I definitely found this level the most challenging on my first playthrough, but since learning more about the Sentinel Hammer, it's no longer an absolute chore to slog through, and I do find it fun to play. It offers a few open areas, but definitely more close-quarter encounters, as the challenging sections are mainly in small arenas, which again, I'm not the only person to think this, but the arena sections in Reclaimed Earth definitely feel like Unreal Tournament maps, and as a long-time Unreal fan, I'm totally down with this design. I do understand when people say they seemed rushed and unoriginal because they're just box rooms with tunnels that feed into each other, but I'm okay with it. I couldn't do any better if I was in charge of level design, that's for sure. The second escalation encounter here is definitely tough, as it throws an Archvile, a Spirit, a Marauder, and a Doom Hunter in all at once, which is a game journalist's worst nightmare. But a Doom Juicer's ultimate fun zone happy time. The new enemies introduced in Reclaimed Earth are the Cursed Prowlers and the Chain Gunners. Oh, I'm sorry. Riot Soldiers. The Cursed Prowler, I'll agree with the majority of the Doom community in saying these little fuckers can go fuck themselves. They're a regular Prowler but coloured green and playing a game of tag with the Doomslayer. Ballsy motherfucker. If he gets you, your movement is slowed, your health chips away, and the only way to uncurse yourself is to blood punch the Cursed Prowler, so you better get your plasma rifle handy and build up those glory kills, because otherwise you are boned. They're not as difficult as such, but as soon as you see one or you learn a spawn point, you definitely need to take care of these guys ASAP. And ugh.
What have they done with my boy?
Should I even mention the Riot Soldiers? id Software have said they aren't technically chain gunners, but they are totally chain gunners. They have an arm-mounted chain gun, and they're coloured red. They have an invulnerable yellow shield, and they can only be damaged from behind with a well-placed remote detonation or a few grenades. But otherwise, they offer no real challenge. I suppose being called a Riot Soldier, they're basically glorified UAC security guards that attempt to hit you with wet socks with the aim of a stormtrooper. If there's one classic Doom enemy that would make a comeback, which I think the community would unanimously agree on, is the return of an incredibly difficult chain gunner. If his attacks are cheap and annoying and totally hit scanny, I think we'd all love it because Doom nerds are masochists. And finally, we enter the city of Immora. the capital city of Hell. This level is introduced with an Avengers Endgame style epic battle cutscene, and it's the last full level of the DLC before you reach the Dark Lord himself. It starts out with opening platforming areas as you make your way through fairly simple sections of demon encounters. The escalation encounter in this level is yet again definitely a highlight of my personal playthrough, but definitely not the best or most challenging arena in this level. The first section seems to take place in the outskirts of the city, as it's all just brown rocks, but where's the Hell influence? Where's the Event Horizon level viscera in the level design itself? Don't get me wrong, I find this level fun, but its design choices are kind of weird. The second half of the level, when you reach the inside of Immora, it absolutely is beautiful, but it does just seem like a red version of Urdak. To me, it feels most of the focus when making this level was just in the battle surrounding the Slayer and not so much on the level itself. Just looking around and seeing hundreds of soldiers battling the hordes of Hell, but where the surroundings shine, the level kinda lacks. Immora isn't any more or less challenging than Reclaimed Earth. The arenas throw all enemy types at you from the regular Doom roster alongside spirits, armored barons, cursed prowlers, screecher zombies, but once you've mastered the use of the Sentinel Hammer and prioritize the enemies accordingly, you'll be fine. Not saying that you won't die a whole bunch, but the difficulty definitely deserves to be spiked here, considering this is pretty much the conclusion of the Doom saga. The city of Immora is where we're introduced to a brand new enemy type, and I have no idea who they are or why they're even here. Hell Soldiers are just assets ripped from Doom 2016's multiplayer and slapped in the level, and they deal barely any damage. They can't even be glory killed or chainsawed, and they literally explode from one single shot. Why would the devs not just put imps in their place? Better yet, replace them all with tyrants. One area though which does stand out to me is the double marauder fight on the platform with screechers. Unless you are incredibly careful, these marauders will not muck around. There are blood punch and hammer refills scattered for use here, with a soul sphere in the middle if you do run into real trouble. But you'll notice there are monkey bars placed here, so if you accidentally hit a screecher which buffs the marauders, make sure to stay airborne and avoid the wolf attacks until the buff wears off and you can make your move. The best way I handle this encounter is to lead the marauders to follow you and both open up for attack at the same time. This way they both flash green, you can hit them both with a single super shotgun hit, and a sentinel hammer stunning them for a long time, and then pump them both with chain gun or full auto shotgun. Rinse and repeat, and you'll feel ever so satisfied once you finally beat them. Right. And a possessed baron. Once you've completed the Marauder section, you'll move on to the final arena of the DLC. This final battle arena, which begins with spawning in several fodder demons, a cyber demon in the middle, a cursed prowler, several mancubus, which then moves around to armored barons, cyber mancubuses, which includes a spirit, and arachnotrons. My advice, learn the cursed prowler spawn point and take care of him first. And for the rest, just use the hammer as much as possible. Have fun, spam the BFG, because once you've used it, you won't need it again for the rest of the game. And most importantly, stay mobile. This final battle arena is so much fun. Despite the hell level design being not quite what we expected, this arena and the double marauder fight absolutely makes up for it because it's incredibly fun. Once you complete this section, you hitch a ride on a sentinel ship with an amazing meat hook swinging cutscene to land on a platform which includes a haste power up and for a short time, infinite shells, and you're about to get swamped by stone imps. This section, considering this is the entrance to the battle with the Dark Lord, would have been perfect to spawn in 2 tyrants, maybe even possess to give you a real challenge. Sometimes you'll complete this section without dying at all and you'll get through it within a minute. Other times you'll get absolutely blitzed and die 4 or 5 times over just trying to get through it. It's a really strange section, but overall it is fun. But this section concludes the city of Immora and we move on to the final battle. The conclusion of the entire Doom saga leading up to this point. Not that there was much indication in content outside of the DLC, but hey, here we are. The Dark Lord himself. I really can't say much about this boss fight that hasn't already been said. Personally, I prefer bullet sponge bosses with multiple phases and multiple attack patterns, just like the Spider Mastermind in Doom 2016. That boss battle was fantastic. But the Dark Lord? It's just the Doomslayer versus a less complex but also larger Marauder. I think the design of the Dark Lord himself is awesome, don't get me wrong. His armor design is incredible, but the battle itself is very lacking in action. The terrain is just a big flat circle and there's no other enemy spawns that can cause a real threat if you're not careful. This boss battle isn't designed to counter your attacks really either. He just can't be damaged outside of him flashing green for an opening. It's an elongated game of red light, green light, and in the first phase he's so lacking in ability, when you stand still he doesn't even know what to do, and it's kind of silly. Let's stand still. Come on. Come on. Remember id Software when they were promoting Doom 2016 when they kept saying if you stop, you will die, you need to keep moving. Well, the final boss is designed that you can stand still and he'll basically leave you alone. His movement is designed to seem like he's countering your movement, but it's really jank. The later phases become more challenging, but being able to stand still on Nightmare and just taunt him? He should be kicking my ass in these moments, but instead he's tap dancing and he sends out his puppets for pats. There really isn't a lot to say about this boss fight at all, because it really isn't complex. The only reason I struggled in my first playthrough is because I had the tutorials turned off, but every subsequent playthrough, it just gets easier and easier. The only time you can really actually die in this battle is if you attempt to swing the hammer in a moment of panic and you don't have any hammer charges, leaving you open to getting damaged badly, but there are unmoving zombies that consistently spawn in which allow you to obtain easy glory kills to charge the hammer. Just wait for his lights to go green, shoot him with a super shotgun or ballista, stun him with the hammer, then melt him with either the quad barrel chain gun or full auto shotgun. The only weapons I actually use in this battle, of course, is the hammer, the plasma rifle to get glory kills, the SSG to catch his openings, and either the chain gun or the full auto combat shotgun depending on which one I feel like using. Rinse and repeat enough times and it's all over. Although it is satisfying to beat him, I genuinely don't like that 90% of the fight is just zombie farming for glory kills to recharge the hammer. I find myself getting bored with the repetitive nature of the battle and I just kind of want to beat it just to get it done rather than to feel accomplished by beating the Dark Lord himself. I really don't want to say that this boss fight is boring, but to be honest, it kind of is. And I do think it's unfortunate to think that the Dark Lord is the weakest and least challenging boss fight we've had throughout the entirety of Doom Eternal and Doom 2016 combined. Even the Cyber Demon battle in Doom 3 had more action than this. But I don't want to end this video on such a low note. Overall, you can't expect your favorite bands to release the greatest album they've ever made every single time with every new release, right? It's crazy to expect the same from game developers. Sometimes things fall flat, especially in franchises such as Doom, because they set the bar so friggin' high every single time. And I do think that the Ancient Gods is the best DLC content we could possibly have asked for. It's not overpriced skins or crappy battle passes, it's genuine lengthy meaty DLC single player campaign content. And that's a lot to ask for. It's fantastic to think that id Software have absolutely stuck to their guns and they've been able to put out 2 full-length DLC campaigns as DLC and made it all during the pandemic as well. As Doom fans, we should be absolutely respectful of all the hardworking devs over at id Software for putting out new Doom content for us to experience. Overall, I can't hide the fact that some parts of the DLC, yes, they are lacking, but only in comparison to the amazing Doom experiences that id Software have brought us previously prior to this DLC. So we need to be humble and appreciate what we've got. So thank you id Software for putting out brand new Doom content for us to experience and enjoy. And I'm looking forward to the punishment we're all going to endure when the master levels are released very soon. Thank you for watching this video. My name is Dilbo. Check me out on Twitch. Links are all down below. Hit that like button or subscribe button if you feel so inclined. But otherwise, we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for hanging out. Also, I forgot to mention during the review that it doesn't really need to be said, but the music is absolutely baller. David Levy and Andrew Holsholt, hats off to you guys. God damn it, it's juicy.